everybody. We are in Sydney, Australia on Parramatta Road in the western part of Sydney at Articulate Project Space. My exhibition here is part of the Head On Photo Festival, and it begins here on the sidewalk with these photographs of marks that tell us to stand 6 feet apart. I've taken pictures of them and printed them on these kind of stickers and put them out on the sidewalk. And there's a few more over there. There's 3 galleries here and 3 different shows. My exhibition is upstairs. We just finished our reception. So the show is called 6 Feet Apart, and on the ground I have the marks that look like 2 feet, which were very popular in Japan, but I've seen them different places. And I've got them approximately every 6 feet apart throughout the show. So the first piece here features 4 images that were in my last show and were on the ground, on the sidewalk, and got scratched and torn and faded. And I've saved them and put them in these frames. They've come full circle from originally being marks on the ground and then being reproduced on the ground and then being saved. I call them artifacts. And they're like the children to the large background mural that is a very faint mark that's just almost the shadow of a mark, just the leftover adhesive. This little piece of adhesive is coming up, and the way they cross it almost looks like a Band-Aid. On this wall, I have these sampler series. So in this case, a kind of sampler of all the X shapes. So these are all, again, pictures of these marks that tell us to stand 6 feet apart. And I've collected 25 different marks from 25 different locations. And collecting them like this into a typology, I'm referencing this scientific method of photography where you take pictures of some phenomenon, take it the same way with the same presentation, and this grid gives each one of them the same weight. And the idea is that in studying a scientific phenomenon, one would be able to compare them and draw some kind of conclusions. This one is an imperfect grid where the images are falling onto the ground, or maybe they're crawling up from the ground. Part of the point of this series is to embrace the distressed quality of these images and the distressed quality of the pandemic, what it does to the body, what the distressed quality of our memories of it starting 3 years ago. So this grid is also distressed. So this one is the sampler of the circle shapes. I love these, how there's just a shadow. It's almost forgotten, it's almost gone. And this one is the sampler of the eye shapes. Eyes. I call it the eye shape, these lines, like the letter I, like it represents myself. The X shape is interesting that way too, to think about how an X can be a legal representation, like a signature. So I explored other scientific ways of representing data and how to visualize all these numbers that we all had to deal with, numbers of infections or numbers of people vaccinated. So this is simply referencing a bar graph. Again, there's no real data behind it, but each row is from a different location. So all these yellow ones were all in one spot. And that's why the rows are of different lengths. And I love seeing them close together and thinking about how they all look so similar and yet each one is unique. And again, there's metaphors for the pandemic, how we reacted to it, how our bodies reacted to it. This is another reference to a scientific way of visualizing data. This one I call a DNA sequence, and it's referencing the early method of sequencing DNA where each nucleotide would get colorized after being sequenced. And again, there's no actual data being encoded here. And finally, there's another grid of the X shapes. And these are, I call them tiles. They're wrapped around these wood blocks. And again, they are an imperfect grid. Something's missing, something's mysterious, something needs to be figured out. I just love this space and how distressed the floor is. It matches the distressed quality of the images. All right, thanks for watching.